Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about things I wish I knew when I had started writing, poetry specifically. Because I think in my life, when someone has come to me with, hey man, here's what I learned from my experience in this situation, here's what I wish I would have known, here's my experience, it's a lot more helpful than someone just coming at me from like viewing themselves as better or more knowledgeable than me. So I'm just trying to like speak in that kind of like, okay, you get what I'm saying. I love how this is a video about writing and I'm already being bad with words. But yeah, if you're a new poet and you're here for this reason, I'm so happy you're here. And yeah, it is better to have written something, fill in the blank. So bad, cringy, repetitive, straight ass, than to have not written at all. Something I am trying to work on is to not be afraid to write something that's bad or cringe or just like, Jesus, man, what the fuck is that? Like, it's just always better to have it done or to have it worked on or to have it something than to never have written it. That's just talking about how it's like writing is inherently valuable, even if no one sees it, even if it's bad, even if it's just like complete nonsense, it still captured your thoughts at a point in time, and there's some inherent value in that. And some people outside of you might find that value and they might not, or you will find that value when you look back on it in the future. But it's just always better to have written something than to have not. So, in poetry, in my humble opinion, there aren't any rules as to what you're allowed to write, how you're allowed to write, when you're allowed to write. Write about whatever the fuck you want. Anything you want to write about, go at it. And like, I've written poems that are 3 lines that honestly could be put on a fucking birthday card. I've written 3,000 word rambles that made no sense. I've written like thoughtful dialogues between characters. And it is all poetry. Whatever you feel inclined to write about, go ahead. And I guarantee you, your super niche thing that you think is just too weird for this world or just too niche, there's someone out there who's like, oh my god, this is my favorite poem. This is exactly what I've been looking for. It's like, really. And another thing, when I imagine like a poetic scene of someone writing, I see like they're writing on fancy paper and it's dark and there's a candle and there's like classical music in the background. And if you want to do that, that's great. I've done that maybe one time, maybe more, but really it is not something I'm regularly doing. Most of the stuff I write, it is like 2 in the morning. I am in my underwear in my bed writing on my phone. And you know, that's just how I write. There's no shame about it. It doesn't have to follow any specific rule. My next bit of advice is to write often or find some way to integrate it into one of your like, not daily routines, because writing every day is not always an option, but something you do often. Just kind of add it to your life routinely. So I write before bed, like that's my routine, is I write in my little diary and then I write in my little Google Docs. If you take public transport, maybe on Tuesdays and Thursdays when you're on public transport, you write. Or when you go to the coffee shop on Sundays, just find ways to make this a part of your routine really as often as you realistically can, because I think of it like this, like, let's say something happened on Tuesday and I'm writing really intense, this just happened, I have a lot to fucking say, and that's going to be rambly and upset and emotionally charged. And then on Thursday, I'm still going to have emotions about it, but I'm going to be able to articulate my thoughts more clearly. And then on Sunday, I might just be like, have a more of a better takeaway, very thoughtful language. And all of these captured important points in time. That Tuesday thing is very raw, in the moment, very valuable. And that Sunday thing where you can look back on it when you have more access to your rational brain is also super valuable. So, I don't know, just look at it like that, if that makes sense. Another bit of advice I have is to find your preferences and what you like to read and what you have already written. So, example, I find when I look back on my old poetry, and this is my personal preference, this is how I want to write. This is not how you have to write. This is just sharing some examples. I look back on my old poetry, and some of it I'm like, this is really simple and this is really short, and I don't like that. So I try to write not using things that feel too simple or too short. And I also, but when I look back on my other writing, I'm like, oh, I love how this is almost rambling. I love how this is kind of edgy and emotive and just like, that made no sense. But like, I just love it when it's like really raw and intense. So I try to write that's like raw and intense. And then the same goes for other people's writing. Example, Richard Sicken. His book Crush, read it. Anyways, that's not related to the video. It's just like a book. I don't like the way he uses lines breaks. It is confusing to me. And that's my personal preference. Doesn't mean he's doing it wrong. Doesn't mean I'm right. Just my personal preference. So I don't use line breaks like that. And also, like, I love his use of body metaphors and blood and skin and hands. Like, these are all pretty accessible metaphors because, like, low-key, everyone does have a body. Not that they're all the same, but everyone does have a body. So when I say it felt like a bruise, people know what I mean. So I take what I like and I leave what I don't. So my next bit of advice is save all of it. Personally, for me, this goes in different ways. With ideas, I have a giant Google Doc with like all my ideas and things I've written, things I want to write, and I save every one of them. Even if it's just like one word that's like lavender, like that could be something. Or if it's like a concept, but it's not big enough to be a poem, it'd be like a line or two, I still save it because I will eventually most likely end up using them. And don't delete your work. Do not delete your poems. Do not delete your poems. Do not delete them. Do not delete them. Do not delete. Lucky, because if I wrote something very emotive when I was like 15, I might not have remembered that moment by the time I was 18. And so I can look back on it and see like vivid captures of good things and bad things, and it's like a photo album almost, and you get to capture all these moments and keep them. I think that's really lucky that writers get to do that. So don't delete your stuff, even if no one sees it, even if it's in a locked notes app until the day you die. Another bit of advice I have is to write honestly about how big things feel. As in, don't over exaggerate, but if something feels huge, you can write about it like it's huge. For me, I'm gonna just do examples because I'm gonna be so for real. Everything I write is so fucking dramatic, so I can't really show an example of under exaggerating. But when I write, if someone wanted to write about coming out, and when people write about coming out, they talk about being broken free from bondage and they're finally free and blah, blah, blah. And maybe this person's like, it felt like picking daisies. Go ahead and write about it like it was picking daisies. Like, your experience is valuable however you choose to capture it. And if it wasn't this huge, profound thing, if it wasn't a big experience, you can write about it like it was a small, simple Sunday afternoon, because maybe for you it was. And that's like super valuable to capture that. I think that has a lot of value in it because all writing has value in it. And then this goes on the other side of things. There are things that, let's say Bob, who's the most beautiful epic poet in the world, got a haircut and he's like, oh my god, I hate this haircut. And he writes a 3,000 word thing about how much he hates his haircut. Well, someone might look at that from the outside and be like, Jesus fucking Christ, Bob, you need to calm down. But Bob was speaking from his heart. Bob was telling a story that mattered to him, that felt real to him. So it's good. It's valuable as is. And that's just my advice to writers, that if you feel the need to downplay or overplay something, don't. Okay, so my last bit of advice is on how I personally get ideas for my writing. I think of what I write about as whatever I am passionate about. And passionate isn't necessarily a positive thing. It is anything that I am consistently thinking about in an emotionally charged way. Examples: I could passionately hate someone. I could passionately love a TV show. I could passionately feel a specific way about a certain subject. I've written poems about all of those things. It could just whatever feels emotionally charged, good, bad, positive, negative, there's your topic. And this can be small things too. You know, the TV show Heartstopper, I haven't seen it in a while, but I love that TV show. I think it is amazing. So a lot of the stuff I write is kind of not molded by Heartstopper, but influenced by Heartstopper, because that show is something I'm passionate about. And a lot of the negative experiences I have also influence my writing, because those are things I'm passionate about. Passion doesn't have to be pretty or good, it can be anything. So just write about whatever you're passionate about. That's all I have for this video. If you are a new poet, I am so happy you are here. Get to writing, write it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts on this video, I would love to hear them. Any little bits of writing advice you have, anything like that. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, and have an amazing day.